Welcome everybody to the Red G Fox channel. Thank you for joining us today as we are in our episode breakdowns. Still in season 3, we will be here for a while, and we are at a great one, even though the rating doesn't give it, I think, its equal due. And that is Fuentes, Sanford, and Chico. Fire! We know that's Julio. Anytime we get Julio, I get excited because Julio, like Melvin, is one of my favorite characters. And this one, you'll see an example of why I always like him so much. IMDb gives it a 7.5. Now, we said anything 7.5 or higher is probably considered great. It's not elite, though, and I can get behind that. But there are a few scenes in this that really push, I think, elevate it probably should be 7.7. That's what our channel would give it, 7.7. Let's get right into it. No waste time. Fun facts. While they're at the Mercy mission, Fred is sitting there, and there's another guy sitting next to him. He's got the cigar in his hand, or his mouth. You can see him right here. He never talks once. Fred dips, takes the ashes off for him, and later on, even the second time we see him there, Fred tells him, shut up, even though he never talks. The ironic thing is, that actor's name is Harry Caesar. Harry Caesar, we've talked about him in the past. The very ironic thing is that he's in 2 episodes of Sanford and Son. This one, where you just see him and you never hear him. And he made an earlier appearance with Julio again in the episode where Fred, the reluctant figure man, where 2 guys rob Julio's house, and you hear Harry Caesar, but you don't see him. So in reality, you're like, he's in 2 shows, but if you combine them, we actually get to hear him and see what he looks like. But that's so weird. How many times can you think of television history where a guy's in 2 episodes, one of them you don't see him, and one of them you don't hear him? Just a very funny thing. In case you did not know that, now you know. That's why I love the fun facts. The other one we got, this is real quick, in this, Fred does call when he sees him. He goes, there's Fuentes. Remember, he goes, Fuentes, Chico, and Dumbo. And he's talking about, obviously, Lamont, the dummy. That is a play on the actual Marx Brothers, which is Groucho, Harpo, Chico, and Gummo, the Marx Brothers. I wish they would have titled the episode that. Maybe they couldn't for copyright reasons. Who knows? But still, that was that. So when you hear him say that in that way, if you did not know, it's referring to the Marx Brothers. So that is it, on Fun Facts. Now let's get to the familiar faces. We already talked about Harry Caesar. If you want to know more about him, go check it. We cover everything he's done and the importance to his television and movie history in the episode Fred the Reluctant Figure Man. But today, with all these characters, who we've covered all of them, we only got one, and that is Louis Gus. He is the caretaker. Your doives are getting cold. He's got that accent. He was also in Godfather, and I'm a huge fan of Godfather. He's the one when they have the huge mob round table and they're talking about, Don Corleone has to share the lawyers and the power. He's the one who's like, oh, he tells his boys, they push it. He doesn't want any of his men to take it, blah, blah, blah. But he's in Godfather. And you know what? Before I did this, I never put it together. Comment below if you did not know that or if you already knew. I've seen Godfather so much and I never stopped to realize this is the same actor who's serving food at the Mercy mission. I love that. He was also in the movie Highlander. Big time movie with Sean Connery. Moonstruck. And now he still did something, Find Me Guilty, in 2006. At 88 years old. That's wild. So in 2006, he's passed away since, but in 2006, at 88 years old, he did something called Find Me Guilty. So man, he was acting way, way late in his career and his age. He was in 2 episodes of Law & Order, and in total movies and shows, 117. Wow. We talk about a lot of people who are in the 60s and 70s. I want to say on average, it's about 50 people do movies and shows with these characters. But man, anytime you break 100, we only got a handful of people like Dick Van Patten, or one of the guys we covered a few weeks ago. He was in over 200. The guy who played came to repair the television when the TV broke for Fred. So that's it for familiar faces. Let's get to the breakdown.
The most important thing, Pop, is that you're happy, because I am. If you are.
All right, today's breakdown, I'm going to try to be much quicker, where I'm going to just talk about mostly parts to set up the clips, and I'm going to try to include more clips instead of breaking down the entire thing, which we've seen 1,000 times. I know some people like to hear it. I'll still talk, but let's get right to it. Fred is playing his new tape recorder that he just got, and only for the 2nd time in show history, he is doing the ink spots. We hear him on the recording, then he starts singing with it, and he even makes a facial, you can see right here, expression where he's like, ooh, that was awful. He hit the wrong note. So as he's doing this, Lamont comes in, and Lamont is not happy. He blames him about, hey, where's my breakfast? And Pop is wasting time. Turns out he did make breakfast. Let's see that clip right here.
No, this is not your breakfast, Bernie. This is my breakfast. Your breakfast burned 15 minutes ago.
Yeah, man. Freaking Fred. Oh no, I burnt your breakfast. Now he's worried about his. So now Lamont's like, okay, forget it then. I'm out of here. I'm going to have breakfast with Julio's and Mrs. Fuentes. They'll make it, and he'll appreciate that. And Fred's like, why do you got to go over there? You know, and before you do go over there, there's something you ought to know, especially when it comes to eating Puerto Rican food.
All she cooks is Puerto Rican food.
So?
So you can't eat Puerto Rican food. You're American.
Why not?
Because you ain't had your shot yet.
That one's pretty good when he says that. So then he's like, he talks about, no, you know, I can eat over there. I'm going into business. And Fred's like, wait a minute, what? You're going to start a business with them? And he's like, yeah, I'm talking about. And Fred's like, you can't do that. What about us? He said, man, I even named the business after you. And then he says, well, what are you going to name your business? Let's find out.
I even named it after you and son. I tell you what you should call it. Julio and damn Julio.
We all know that. That's one of the best. I seen it all over comment sections and other Sanford Sun clips when Julio's there. Julio and damn Julio. Julio. So Lamont, he starts to go, and now Fred's trying to make him feel guilty. Oh, what about this? And he's doing my heart attack, my arthritis. He's using anything he can, everything that he's done for Lamont, this business, all this. He's totally trying to break it down, and it's worked in the past. But I got to give it to Lamont, right? We've seen other episodes where he doesn't fall for it, but he's still on the fit. He is not. He is like an anchor. He is like, you ain't moving me. He even stands there. He's like, are you done? And then he walks away and goes out there, and Julio's out there, and they're excited. And then Fred doesn't sound too excited. Julio's questioning, you know, sounds like you don't like this. What's his response?
Hey, what's the matter, Mr. Sanford? I mean, sounds like you don't care for this idea.
El correcto.
Yeah, Fred does not want any part of this. But you know, it's always part, you know, it seems like at this stage we're past Fred's prejudice, you know, bigotry towards Julio, his culture. And so he seemed like he's kind of past it, but you still know that, hey, Fred doesn't want Julio getting involved with this, or Lamont in this. He wants him with that. And then they talk about, hey, it's going to be great because in the long-term plan, we're going to fix cars. And that's when Fred's like, oh, really? What kind of cars are you going to fix?
Puerto Rican car. Now, what's a Puerto Rican car?
Same as a Mexican car. It won't start.
I love that line. So, yeah, out comes Miss Fuentes, and she comes out there, and she's mentioning to him, and then Fred, remember we talked about how he got Spanish. The only time in show history that he gets Spanish correct is, or he does get it correct once with Lamont when he says, hey, I know some cuss words too. But he says it where remember, Miss Fuentes comes out and he's like, oh, bony knees. Buenos nachos, bony knees. So he's not too pumped about this. And who else comes with Miss Fuentes?
Uh-oh, here comes the rest of the family.
There's the famous line we talked about at the beginning in the fun facts. Lamont comes back, his day's done. Him and Julio are coming in. They're going to probably go out, do something. But before they go to check on their dad or his pop, and Fred's not there, and the tape recorder's there, and it's got a note saying play. He listens to it, and Fred is given the sob story. And I love the reaction from Lamont. It's, nope, I'm not falling for any of this. While you look at Julio, and he's like, man, he's rubbing the head. He feels bad. And every time Lamont's about to end it, there's another part, and then another part, and another part. Fred keeps stretching it out. And Julio's like, man, I can't believe this. Your father. And he's like, man, don't even listen to that. He's probably out getting drunk, you know, probably out at some bar, trying to make me feel guilty. He's not far off. Forget the bar, but he's not that far about feeling guilty. And he tells him, you know, let's forget it. And he's like, serious? Your dad would do that? He's all, correcto, el correcto. So they're ready to take off. And Grady comes in. That's one thing I actually forget sometimes that Grady's in this one. I always think of the Mercy Mission, which is actually my favorite part, that whole scene. I always think of Julio, Miss Fuentes, and Chico, but I forget Grady comes. And when Grady comes in, he's talking about, you know what, I need to get the Bible. And he's like, why do you need a Bible? He's like, I can't tell you. And let's see what Grady says. Because remember, he swore he wouldn't tell Lamont about where Fred's at. But let's see how he swore.
I can't tell. And why not? I took a solemn oath on the Bible. How could you take an oath on the Bible when the Bible is still here?
I love when he's like, I swear to God. He's all, it's not the only place that has a Bible, you know. But when Grady's stuttering, we never see him stutter again. So I'm guessing that means he's lying, right? Or he's not lying ever again in show history. But Lamont takes off. He's not going to wait. You know, this time, he even like how Julio was concerned, he believes him. He goes. And when he comes in, Fred's shocked. He's like, what? Why are you here? He said, Grady swore he wouldn't tell. Let's see his reaction to this, because it seems serious at first.
Grady told me. What are you trying to pull, Pop?
Grady swore on the Bible right here in the mission that he wasn't going to tell nobody. What took you so long?
So He's like, yeah, exactly. I love it. He knew Grady would tell. He couldn't help it. Grady's not gonna be able to hold a secret, especially when he stutters when he lies. So Fred's like trying to sell it to him because he wants him to feel guilty, and Lamont's like, no, you need to come home. You know, get out of here. This is no place for you. Man, he sells it about they got a meal, they got their own, you know, their own chef, how great it is, the bed, they got the security, all these things. And then Lamont's like, you're gonna do this for 50 cents a night? He's all 35. Why am I telling you? Just look at that clip. I love the rates they have at this place.
It's in a nice flop house.
35 cents without a pillow. Excuse me.
Right now we see it. Fred is we're seeing Fred at his best, and Lamont is kind of buying it. He is really buying it. And Fred is just, everything is, hey man, I got $200. I can stay here as long as I can. And you know, eventually I'll probably be up with your mom. But he's guilting him, and Lamont feels horrible, and he's not listening. Then it's dinner time, and what happens? They even got wine. How great is this place? Why? I should go there.
See, we also have wine with our dinner.
I love the wine, passing it around. They even got wine. Yeah, the whole scene there, and even the second time, I really like the Mercy mission, and that's when we saw the guy sitting there. Fred takes a cigar and dips it for him and puts it back. Remember, he was a big. Fred even said he was a big man in Washington for all that stuff happened. They make several references to Nixon and Watergate and all this stuff here. Where remember he says, or that's later when he talks about the bed. He's like, man, there's so many bugs in here. You think you're sleeping at the Watergate? That's when Lamont comes back. So the next scene we go, and Julio is working on a tire or a car. He's doing something, and Lamont's like, man, you should see this place, Julio. It's crazy that he's staying in this. And Julio, this is why I love Julio. He knows the value of family. Being a family man myself my whole life, I've always cared about family, and I admire Julio and his culture, where it's like, and it is. The Spanish culture is all about family. Not that everyone isn't, but you really see it strong in this with all of them. But Julio's like, hey man, if my father was in a place like that, I would be out of there in 2 seconds getting him. And Lamont's like, hey, if it was your father, I would be too, because I wouldn't have to live with him. But let's see what Julio says when he says, hey man, what would Julio do?
Man, you are both so stubborn. I'll tell you something, man. If that was my father in a place like that, I would give in and apologize.
If that was
Yeah, see, I like that. And he's like, man, you are both so stubborn. He's like, man, you got to go out of the way and get this. So Lamont, he sees Mrs. Fuentes, and they were talking about making the Puerto Rican, the big Spanish food, and it's a huge mess. And now Lamont gets a light bulb. He's like, I know my pop does not like the kitchen being a mess, and he sure as heck doesn't want it filled with Puerto Ricans. So he gets a brainstorm, and he rushes back down to the Mercy mission, and now he reverses everything. See, this cracks me up. I love Lamont in this. When he's doing all this, he's like, hey man, this is a great bed. Hey, remember you were always scared of going out at night, me taking off, going with friends, and you get attacked? You ain't gonna get attacked here. You know, this is perfect. And he's all, see that guy wrapped up? He said, someone's ripped off all his clothes. He's in a towel. You can see the picture here. Someone stole all his clothes. So that's awesome right there, how he does that. And Lamont's like, hey, the guy next to him did it too. But Lamont is doing everything he can to sell it. Let's see the reaction
The bed
here.
is hard as an ironing board. And you got to line up to get to the toilet. And the oatmeal is so runny, you have to suck it through the
Yeah,
straw.
you know, Fred's like, no, dude, everything he says, it's not working, it's not flying. One thing I forgot, I gotta put this clip, I want to see this, is when he comes in and Fred's looking at like a girly magazine, and he sees Lamont coming, what does he do?
Honor thy father and thy mother. And thy days may be long.
That is so Fred. That is such a Fred thing. And the perfect line, honor thy father and thy mother. That's Lamont's right there. So Lamont's like, hey man, don't worry about it. He said, I know you didn't want to be alone, so I invited the Fuentes. He's all Julio, Mrs. Fuentes, and Chico. They're all moving in, and we're going to have a great big meal, and it's going to be all messy. And Fred is like, no way. So he's like, no, don't leave, and he takes off. So now he gets back, and he's like, hey, I think this is going to work. I think we can pull this off. But Fred has something up his scheme, and that's what I always love, is somebody usually gets the last laugh, and it seems like it's Fred Sanford more often. But he comes in, and what does he do to get a little bit of revenge on Lamont and kind of teach him a lesson?
Come on in.
Wait a minute.
When they all come in, I love watching the guys in the background too, the way they eat. And they're just like they really just grab some guys off the street having a good time. But that's how it ends. I know the very last scene we get where Fred's cleaning everything up, and then there's a thing of mofongo, and Fred's eating, and he really likes it. He's like, "Where you at, Pop?" And he's like, "I'm getting rid of the mofongo." So he likes the food, you know, and not as expected, you know, Fred, he likes that kind of food. He just was he just didn't think it would be that good. But overall, like I said, I feel like this is better than 7.5. I think my personal opinion with this, you got Grady. I wish he was in a little more, but anytime, and he's funny in this. Grady, Julio, and then you get the Mercy Mission with all the different characters in there. You know, though they don't really speak much other than the caretaker. I would say 7.7. I've seen 7.7 episodes that I think this is better than. This is in my top 50. Maybe 60, but it's not top 20. But it is definitely not in the back end. It's better than anything in probably season 6, even though we have a lot that we love. Season 6, my first one I ever watched. But all that being out of there, I think overall, our channel, we give it a 7.7. Comment below, what is it you like about this one? And then last thing as we get ready to take off, power to the Foxes!
Power to the Foxes!
Yes, a special shout out to our member, and that is Jim Offit. Anytime you feel like becoming a member and getting perks, special badges, live shows eventually where it'll be members only chat, as well as our game show coming up, all sorts of good things, please become a member today. If not, if you see anything you like, click that like button and subscribe. Our channel's growing and I love it, and it's always better with more. And everyone who subscribes is a Sanford and Son fan. That's what I love about the channel, because we all love Sanford and Son. So have a great week. I hope you enjoyed your Memorial Day weekend, and thank you to all the vets out there for as we remember everybody, for all the soldiers who were lost. Thank you very much for all those that did do that sacrifice. If you have a family member as well, like I do, I have several, including on my wife's side. So thank you very much. Be safe, and we'll see you on Friday. Peace.